What would you do if you were told your own grandson would be the cause of your death? Would you accept your fate with quiet dignity, or would you do everything in your power to outsmart destiny itself? Let's journey back to the ancient Greek kingdom of Argos, where you'll find its king, Acrisius, wrestling with this very question. He's a man with everything: power, wealth, a formidable army, but the one thing he craves, a male heir, eludes him. All he has is a daughter, the beautiful Danae. So, he does what any sensible, God-fearing king does when faced with a problem. He takes a trip to see the oracle Adelphia. He wants to know if he'll ever have a son. The oracle's answer, whispered in riddles and smoke, is a cold, hard no. But that's not the worst part. Oh no. The oracle adds a little cherry on top of this Sunday of disappointment. Danae will have a son, and that boy is fated to kill you. The news hits Acrisius like a physical blow. Suddenly, his beloved daughter is no longer his child. She's a vessel for his own doom. The gears of paranoia begin to grind in his mind, and a desperate, cruel plan begins to form. Settle in, because this is where our story of Perseus truly begins, not with a hero, but with a terrified old man trying to cheat death. Acrisius returns to Argos, his mind a tempest of fear. He can't kill Danae, of course. Patricide is a one-way ticket to eternal punishment from the Furies, and he's not quite ready for that. But he can't let her live a normal life, either. He can't allow her to meet a man, to fall in love, to have the son that the prophecy foretold. So he builds her a prison fit for a goddess, or perhaps a treasure. Deep beneath his palace, he constructs a chamber made entirely of bronze. Some stories say it was a tower of brass, but the underground version feels so much more claustrophobic, doesn't it? There are no doors, no windows, just a single, small opening in the ceiling, a tiny square of sky that serves as a constant reminder of the world she has lost. This is where he locks Danae away, with only a single nursemaid for company, hoping to seal her off from the world of men, and, therefore, from fate itself. A pretty solid plan, you might think. Foolproof, even. But Acrisius made one critical error. He forgot to account for the gods, and one god in particular has a penchant for looking down from Mount Olympus, and noticing beautiful, lonely women in impossible situations. That god is Zeus, king of them all. He sees Danae in her bronze prison, a beautiful soul wasting away in the dark, and he is captivated. But how to get to her? A locked bronze room is a bit of a challenge, even for a deity. This is where we get one of the most famous, and frankly, strangest, divine encounters in all of mythology. Zeus transforms himself into a shower of golden rain. Scholars still argue whether this was a literal shower of liquid gold, which sounds both painful and impractical, a cascade of golden coins symbolizing a divine bribe, or simply a poetic metaphor for the sheer, overwhelming and luminous presence of a god. Either way, this golden light pours through the single opening in the roof, filling the dark, cold chamber with warmth and brilliance, pooling on the floor and coalescing before the astonished eyes of Danae. From this shimmering, impossible union, a child is conceived. For a while, Danae manages to keep her baby, Perseus, a secret. But you can't exactly keep a growing baby quiet in an echoey bronze room forever. One day, Acrisius hears the faint sound of a child's cry and his blood runs cold. The prophecy he tried so hard to prevent has come to pass. So, you find yourself a terrified king, staring down at your daughter and the grandson you were told would end you. Your genius Bronze's plan has failed spectacularly. What's your next move? Do you admit defeat? Of course not. King Acrisius doubles down on his cruelty. He drags Danae and the infant Perseus from their chamber and takes them down to the shore. He has a large wooden chest, crudely built, but sturdy, waiting for them. He forces them inside, into the suffocating darkness. Imagine Danae, clutching her baby, listening to the hammers pounding the lid shut, sealing them in. The sound of her father's voice, cold and distant, is the last thing she hears before the chest is dragged into the surf and cast, adrift on the merciless, open sea. It's a clever loophole, in a twisted way. He isn't directly killing them, so he hopes the Furies will just, look the other way. He's not murdering them. Just putting them in a situation where they have a 99.9% chance of being murdered by the ocean. Totally different. Inside the chest, you're tossed on the waves, a tiny, helpless speck in a world of churning water and roaring wind. Days and nights blur into a terrifying cycle of fear and prayer, but someone up on Olympus is still watching. Remember how this all started. Zeus isn't about to let his son and his recent love interest just perish in a box. It's a bad look. He asks his brother Poseidon to calm the seas around the chest, guiding it safely. Eventually, after what feels like an eternity, the gentle rocking is replaced by a grating sound. Sand, and, as luck, or divine intervention, would have it, a kind fisherman named Dictys is mending his nets nearby. His name, Dictys, literally means fishing net in Greek, which is a little on the nose, but will allow it. He hears the faint cries from within the chest, forces it open, and is stunned to find a beautiful woman and a healthy baby. He takes them in without a second thought, offering them a home and a new life. For years, things are peaceful. You, as Perseus, grow up in the humble but happy home of Dictys. You learn to fish, to mend nets, and to be a good son. You grow strong and tall, and fiercely protective of your mother Dana, who remains as beautiful as ever. And that, unfortunately, is where the next problem starts. The island of Seriphos is ruled by a king named Polydectes, who happens to be well, he's the kind of guy who would have a really creepy Tinder profile. He sees Danae and decides he must have her, but she repeatedly rejects his advances, and he knows that her big, strapping son Perseus is a major obstacle. He can't just get rid of you. That would be too obvious. So he devises a much more cunning, public trap. Polydectes announces he's seeking a bride. A total lion throws a massive banquet, inviting all the prominent men of the island. The price of admission, a gift for the king's new bride. Specifically, a horse. It was a common custom, a way for nobles to show their wealth and loyalty. You, Perseus, are a poor fisherman. You own a boat, some nets, maybe a well-worn tunic, but you definitely don't own a horse. At the banquet, as everyone presents their magnificent steeds, you feel the sting of shame and inadequacy. In a fit of youthful pride and desperation, you stand up and loudly declare that while you have no horse, you will bring King Polydectes any other gift he desires. You'll go to the ends of the earth for him. A hush falls over the hall. Polydectes' lips curl into a cruel smile. This is the moment he was waiting for. Very well, Perseus, he says, his voice dripping with mock generosity. Since you are so eager, you can bring me something truly special. Bring me the head of the Gorgon, Medusa. The blood drains from your face. You've just been publicly tricked into accepting a suicide mission. You stumble out of the banquet hall, the mocking laughter of Polydectes and his court echoing in your ears. The salty night air of Seriphos does nothing to clear your head. A suicide mission. That's what he's sent you on. She is tall and imposing, with piercing grey eyes that seem to see right through you, and a mirrored shield with a user manual that basically boils down to do you anti-lookup. But Hermes and Athena explain it's not enough. You still need two things: a special bag, the cabeces, to contain the head, as its deadly power won't stop working just because it's detached. And more importantly, you need to know where to find the Gorgons in the first place. They don't show up on Google Maps. The gods themselves don't even know the exact location, but they know who does. They tell you that you must seek out the Grey Sisters, ancient hags who live in a land of perpetual twilight at the edge of the world. They are the key to the next step. Scholars still argue whether these divine gifts were literal artifacts or symbolic representations of the hero acquiring divine favor, courage, and wisdom. But for you, standing on that beach, the weight of the sickle in your hand and the cool surface of the shield feel very, very real. She carries a spear and a shield of highly polished bronze. This is Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, and she has a very personal stake in this quest. As a mainstream mythological fact, Medusa was not always a monster. She was once a beautiful priestess who served in Athena's temple, but was cursed by the goddess for breaking her vows of celibacy with Poseidon. Athena now offers you her own aegis, her shield, or at least a shield polished to a mirror-like finish. Never look at Medusa directly, she warns, her voice like the grinding of stones. Her gaze will turn you to stone. You must only look at her reflection in the shield as you strike. She is the strategist, the one giving you the tactical manual for this impossible boss fight. You, a fisherman's son, armed with nothing but youthful arrogance, have sworn to bring back the head of a monster so deadly that no one who has seen her has lived to tell the tale. You wander down to the familiar shore, the waves lapping at the sand, a rhythm that has always brought you comfort. But tonight, it just sounds like the world whispering you're doomed. You sink onto the cool sand, burying your face in your hands. How could you have been so stupid? This isn't just about your pride anymore. With you out of the picture, there's nothing to stop Polydectes from forcing himself on your mother. You're trapped. Just as despair begins to truly set in, a voice, impossibly casual, speaks from beside you. Tough day. You look up and see a young man, lean and athletic, with a traveler's hat and a mischievous glint in his eye. There's something odd about his sandals, though. They seem to have small, feathered wings sprouting from the ankles, fluttering gently in the breeze. This is Hermes, the messenger of the gods, the celestial delivery guy, and your first divine life coach. He explains that some of the folks on Olympus have taken an interest in your situation. Apparently, tricking the son of Zeus into a fatal quest is frowned upon in the divine HR department. Hermes gives you two invaluable gifts. First, his own winged sandals, the Talaria, so you can travel with the speed of thought. Second, he lends you a special weapon. It's not a sword, not exactly. It's a harp, a wickedly sharp sickle made of adamantine, the same mythical metal used to forge Cronus' son. This unique, curved blade is one of the few things capable of severing the Gorgoness snakehead head from her scaly neck. Just as you're trying to process this, another figure appears, this one exuding an aura of calm, serious authority. So now you have flying shoes, an unbreakable monster-slaying sickle. You strap the winged sandals on, the leather feeling strangely alive against your skin. With a push, you're airborne, rising above the familiar shores of sea. There's no birdsong, no rustling leaves, just oppressive silence. Athena's advice was clear. Be swift, be decisive, and I will not return it until you tell me what I need to know. You have to blackmail 3 ancient, semi-divine beings. This was definitely not covered in fisherman training. Scholars still argue whether Perseus threatened to smash the eye on the rocks, or simply throw it into a nearby lake. But either way, the threat of leaving them in eternal darkness was potent. They have no choice. In a torrent of raspy whispers, they give you the information you seek. They tell you how to find the nymphs of the north, the keepers of the final pieces of gear you'll need. Following their directions, you leave the 3 sisters weeping in their twilight cave, presumably after tossing them back their eye, and find the nymphs in a surprisingly cheerful, hidden grove. In stark contrast to the Gree, they are beautiful and kind. They bestow upon you the final, crucial items, the cap of invisibility, borrowed from Hades himself, and the cabeces, a special leather bag that can safely contain the toxic head of Medusa. Now you are fully equipped. You have the speed, the weapon, the shield, the invisibility, and the containment. And thanks to the Gree, you have the final, dreadful piece of the puzzle, the location of the Gorgon's lair. You see the eye begin its journey from one sister's hand to another. Just as their fingers are about to touch, you dart forward, your hand a blur. You snatch the single, precious eye right out of the air. A collective, horrified gasp echoes in the cave. The 3 sisters erupt in a panic, their blind hands flailing wildly, clawing at the empty air in each other. My eye! She has my eye. One shrieks, give it back to us. Another wails, her voice cracking with age and terror. You hold their sight, their entire world, in the palm of your hand. It feels strangely warm and slick. You try not to think about it too much, and there, huddled in the mouth of a damp cave, you see them. The Grey sisters. Even from a distance, they are a deeply unsettling sight. They look ancient beyond comprehension, their skin like wrinkled parchment, their forms hunched and frail. They are Enio, Pemphido, and Ino, and are sisters to the Gorgons. They are born of ancient sea deities. You creep closer, hiding behind a rock, and watch their bizarre ritual. They have only one eye and one tooth between the 3 of them, which they pass from hand to hand. One sister will pop the eye into her empty socket to see for a moment, mumbling to the others, before plucking it out and passing it to the next eager, grasping hand. It's like the world's worst game of hot potato. The world shrinks beneath you into a beautiful, terrifying map. You fly for what feels like days, the sun and moon blurring into a single, continuous light show. Hermes didn't exactly give you a jeep, just a vague sense of direction. Go towards the place where the sun doesn't shine. So you fly, leaving the warm, blue Aegean behind, crossing over scorched deserts and frozen mountains, heading for the edge of the known world. The landscape below gradually loses its color, bleaching out into endless shades of gray. The air grows cold and thin. You've arrived in the land of perpetual twilight, a place that light and life forgot. You land silently in a desolate, rocky wasteland. The only sound is a low, mournful wind whistling through jagged peaks. You watch, your heart pounding, waiting for the perfect moment. I have your eye, you announce, your voice steady despite the queasiness in your stomach. With the final directions seared into your mind, you thank the nymphs. Pull on Hades' cap of invisibility, which feels unnervingly cold, and once again, take to the skies. This journey feels different. The flight to the Gree was an adventure, a strange detour. This feels like a final commute. The winged sandals carry you out over the vast, endless river Oceanus, which the ancient Greeks believed encircled the entire world. According to the poet Hesiod, this is where the Gorgons dwell, at the very edge of night. The water below isn't the sparkling blue of the Aegean. It's a dark, churning grablak that seems to absorb the light. There's no in-flight entertainment on this trip, just the monotonous roar of the wind and the growing knot of dread in your stomach. You finally spot land, a rocky, desolate island shrouded in a permanent, sickly mist. As you descend, the first thing you notice is the silence. It's an absolute, unnatural vacuum of sound. No wind, no waves crashing, not even the scuttling of insects. The air is heavy and metallic, with an acrid taint, like old blood and ozone. You land, and the ground crunches under your sandals. It's not sand or dirt, but a fine, grey dust. And then you see them, the statue. At first, you think it's some kind of morbid art installation, a really depressing sculpture garden. But as you walk closer, the horrifying truth dawns on you. These are not sculptures. They are what's left of the heroes, the kings, the adventurers who came before you. You walk through this silent gallery of the fallen. Here stands a warrior, his spear raised, his face a mask of defiant fury, now frozen in grey stone for all eternity. Over there, a king, his stone crown slightly askew, his hand outstretched as if begging for mercy. You see men in the prime of their life, their muscles perfectly rendered, and old men, their stony beards seeming to flutter in a wind that isn't blowing. You even see a young boy, no older than 12, who looks like he just stumbled into the wrong place at the wrong time. His face a perfect, heartbreaking sculpture of terror. Each one is a warning, a trophy, a testament to the power you are about to face. Scholars still argue whether the victims of Medusa's gaze were turned into perfect, lifelike stone preserving their final moments with artistic clarity, or if the process was a violent, agonizing transformation that left their bodies twisted and contorted in agony. Looking at these silent figures, you hope for the former, but fear the latter. Ahead, you see the dark mouth of a cave carved into the base of a black, greasy-looking mountain. This has to be the place, the source of the silence, the lair of the Gorgons. You take a moment to prepare. You check the cap of invisibility on your head. You slip your left arm through the straps of Athena's mirrored shield, its surface gleaming, even in this dim light. In your right hand, you grip the cold, heavy adamantine sickle. You remember the crucial mythological fact the gods shared. There are 3 gods, Euryale and Medusa, but only Medusa is mortal. The other 2 are ageless, indestructible. You can't afford to make a mistake. You can't just go in swinging. You have 1 target and 1 chance. Taking a deep breath that does nothing to calm your pounding heart, you become invisible and take the first silent step into the suffocating darkness of the cave. You really hope you don't end up as a lone ornament. You glide into the Gorgon's lair, a ghost in a charnel house. The cold of the Hades cap seems to seep into your bones, but it's nothing compared to the chilling aura of the place itself. The air is thick and stagnant, smelling of decay and something else. Something strangely metallic and floral, like old pennies and withered lilies. Your only guide is the polished surface of Athena's shield. You see your own ghostly, invisible outline, the gleaming curve of the sickle, and the pale, monstrous neck of your target. This is the famous birth of her children by Poseidon, a warrior brandishing a golden sword, and Pegasus, a magnificent horse with powerful, snow-white wings. They rise from the gore, a shocking explosion of life in this cavern of death. Scholars still argue whether this birth was a final act of creation or a violent release of the divine energy that had been trapped within Medusa's cursed form. You don't have time to ponder the miraculous biology. The shriek that erupts from the 2 immortal sisters, Theno and Euryale, is a sound that could shatter stone. They are awake, they are enraged. You fumble for the kibises, shove the still-writhing, snake-haired head inside, and pull the drawstrings tight. Invisible, you scramble back as the 2 Gorgons flail in blind fury, searching for the killer of their sister. You don't wait to see what happens next. You leap into the air, the winged sandals kicking you towards the cave mouth, and into the grey, misty sky, the sound of immortal, heartbroken rage chasing you across the endless ocean. There is no room for error, no time for hesitation. You think of your mother, of the arrogant King Polydectes, of the stone statues outside. You take one final, steadying breath, and you strike. The adamantine blade, a gift from the gods, slices through flesh and scale with a sickening, wet crunch. Her head comes free. You hold it up, angled downwards, like you're trying to read a text message while walking. This is the ultimate don't look up challenge. The bronze mirror reflects the cave floor, littered with the splintered bones and rusted armor of your predecessors. It's a grim mosaic of failure. You inched forward, your winged sandals making no sound on the dusty ground, and then you see them, reflected in the bronze. The three they are coiled together in a grotesque heap, sleeping. Two of them, Stino and Euryale, the immortal sisters, are massive, with shimmering bronze scales, boar-like tusks, and golden wings. Even in sleep, they twitch and snort, their hands flexing into claws. They look like they're having a bad dream, probably about running out of heroes to pet. But your eyes, or rather, your shield's reflection, find the third figure nestled between them. She is different. Her form is smaller, more recognizably human, which is somehow even more disturbing. And her hair, oh her hair, it's not just snakes, it's a living, writhing nest of green and black vipers, coiling and uncoiling, in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Some are asleep, draped over her face like greasy bangs. Others are awake, their tiny, forked tongues tasting the stale air. In the bronze reflection, you can see her face. It's a tragic mask. The stories said she was once beautiful, and you can see echoes of it, twisted by the curse into something monstrous. Her closed eyelids are pale, her lips drawn back in a permanent, silent snarl. You take a slow, silent step closer, raising the adamantine sickle. An obscure variant of the myth says that the blood from the veins on the right side of Medusa's body could cure any ailment and even raise the dead, while blood from her left side was a fatal, incurable poison. You have no idea which side you're on, and this feels like a terrible time to start guessing. You are there, directly over her. Her snake hair hisses softly, oblivious. The reflection in your shield is your entire world, but the horror isn't over. The instant Medusa's head is severed, two impossible beings spring fully formed from her bleeding neck. You are flying, a panicked, invisible streak across the sky. The screams of the immortal Gorgons fade behind you, but the sound is seared into your memory. A large crowd is gathered on the cliffs, all dressed in black, like they're attending a funeral. This is the princess of the land, Andromeda. The answer was brutal. The only way to appease Poseidon and save the kingdom was to sacrifice his own daughter to the monster. The sea begins to churn violently. The water froths and boils, and then a colossal shape begins to rise from the depths. It is the Cetisa creature of nightmare, with a head like a dragon, a body like a whale, and a hide covered in barnacles and jagged fins. It lets out a roar that shakes the very cliffs. Andromeda closes her eyes, a single tear tracing a path through the salt on her cheek. And you could just fly away. Your mission is to get the head home. This isn't your problem. But looking at the monster, and then at the girl, you realize your heroic to-do list just got one item longer. You take off the cap of invisibility, becoming suddenly visible to the shocked crowd, draw your adamantine sickle, and with a yell, you dive towards the sea. And so, here she is, a royal sacrifice to pay for her mother's arrogance. An obscure detail in some tellings is that the chains binding Andromeda were forged by Hephaestus himself, making them unbreakable by any mortal means. She is truly, utterly trapped. You look from the weeping king and queen back to the girl on the rock. Scholars still argue whether the Ethiopia of Greek myth corresponds to the region of modern-day Ethiopia, or if it was a more general term for lands south of Egypt, including the Levantine coast. This has led to centuries of debate and wildly different depictions of Andromeda in art, from a fair-skinned princess to a woman of color, each interpretation adding a different layer to her story of royal peril. Her mother, the vain and foolish Queen Cassiopeia, had committed a cardinal sin of mythology. This is the mainstream mythological fact at the heart of this tragedy. Cassiopeia claimed that she and her daughter were more beautiful than the 50 lovely and immortal sea nymphs who attend Poseidon. Hearing this, the Nereids did what anyone would do. They complained to their boss. An enraged Poseidon sent a massive sea monster, Mercedes, to ravage the coast of Ethiopia, destroying its ports and killing its people. They aren't looking at each other or at the sky. They are all staring silently, mournfully, out at the sea. Your curiosity gets the better of you. Still, invisible under Hades's cap, you drift closer, and that's when you see what they're looking at. chained to a black, jagged rock right at the water's edge is a young woman. She is breathtakingly beautiful, dressed only in a simple white tunic that's now soaked and tattered by the sea spray. Her wrists and ankles are locked in heavy iron shackles, binding her to the rock as the tide slowly rises around her feet. She isn't crying or screaming. She just stares at the horizon with a look of profound, tragic resignation. The Khyber Sea slung over your shoulder feels impossibly heavy, and you swear you can feel a faint, angry squirming from within. It's deeply unsettling, like carrying a bag full of angry bees, but 1,000 times worse. You just want to go home, to see your mother, to throw this monstrous gift at Polydectes' feet and be done with it. You fly east, putting as much distance as possible between you and that island of stone-faced failures. The desolate grey ocean eventually gives way to a sun-scorched coastline. The land below is rocky and arid, the kingdom of Ethiopia, though it looks more like the coast of the Levant to you. You're exhausted, your arms ache, your head pounds. You just need a place to rest for a moment. As you scan the coastline for a safe place to land, you see a strange sight. What in Hades is going on here? You land softly on the cliff behind the grieving crowd and listen. The story comes out in hushed, sorrowful whispers. The desperate king, Andromeda's father Cepheus. Just then, a collective gasp ripples through the crowd. The crowd on the cliff erupts in a mixture of gasps and confused shouts as you materialize in the sky. To them, it must look like a god has descended. The Cetes, the sea monster, is not impressed. It fixes its huge, malevolent eyes on you, a tiny annoyance buzzing in its airspace. You swoop low, the winged sandals giving you incredible agility. The monster lunges, its jaws cavernous enough to swallow a fishing boat whole. The smell that hits you is unbelievable, a nauseating wave of rotten fish, brine, and ancient decay. It's like the world's worst seafood buffet decided to fight back. You bank hard, the tip of a monstrous tooth grazing your leg, and fly upwards just as its massive head crashes into the cliff face, sending a shower of rock and water into the air. You realize quickly that the adamantine sickle, while great for a clean, surgical strike on a sleeping neck, is not the ideal weapon for fighting a creature the size of a small island. Its hide is too thick, like living rock. Hacking away at it would be like trying to chop down a redwood with a butter knife. You need a different approach. You need a better weapon. And you just so happen to be carrying one, tucked away in your little bag of horrors. You fly high above the thrashing monster, pull open the drawstrings of the kibises, and carefully, so carefully, you reach inside. You grab the snakes, not the face, and pull out the head of Medusa. Even now, severed and lifeless, it is terrifying. The snakes writhe and hiss, and its dead eyes are wide open. You remember Athena's warning, never look at it directly. You avert your gaze, holding the head out at arm's length like it's a particularly smelly piece of garbage. You aim the face of Medusa down at the sea. The monster, roaring in fury, turns its massive head towards you. For one brief, fatal second, its gaze meets the dead, open eyes of the Gorgon. The effect is instantaneous and eerily silent. The monster's roar cuts off mid. The churning water around it stills. The colossal body stiffens, the fins locking into place. A wave of grey color washes over its scaly hide, from the tip of its snout to the end of its tail. The great Cetus, Poseidon's instrument of vengeance, becomes a massive, silent statue of stone, an unmoving, grotesque island in the bay. You quickly shove the head back into the bag and land on the new then leap over to the rock where Andromeda is still chained. She stares at you, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror, confusion, and dawning hope. Her parents, King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia, are already cheering from the cliffs, hailing you as a savior. You use the hilt of your sickle to smash the ancient locks on her chains, freeing her. Back on the shore, the grateful king offers you anything you desire. Gold, power, half his kingdom. But you've just fought a sea monster and rescued a beautiful princess. You're not thinking about real estate. You ask for Andromeda's hand in marriage. She agrees, her parents agree, everyone's happy, a huge wedding is planned immediately. But there's a complication. It's a mainstream mythological fact that Andromeda was already betrothed to someone else, her uncle Phineus. He was perfectly fine with her being sacrificed to a sea monster, mind you. He didn't lift a finger to save her. But now that a dashing monster-slaying hero has shown up and claimed his prize, he's suddenly furious. He bursts into the wedding feast, backed by a small army of his own soldiers, demanding his bride. The celebration turns into a bloody brawl. You're a great hero, but you're outnumbered 20-1. Swords are drawn, spears are thrown. It's chaos. You're fighting for your life. Your new bride cowering behind you. Once again, you realize conventional fighting is not going to cut it. With a sigh of "here we go again," you shout for your allies to shield their eyes. You open the cabeces for the second time. You pull out Medusa's head and hold it high. A wedding gift. You yell at Phineus, from your rival. Phineus and his men look up, and in a flash of terrible light, the wedding reception gets some new, permanent, and very lifelike decorations. Scholars still argue whether Phineus was turned to stone in a defiant pose, or if in a moment of cowardice. He shielded his eyes and begged for his life, only to be petrified into a cringing, weeping statue for all time. The wedding hall falls silent, now decorated with a collection of very surprised-looking statues. The remaining guests, the ones who were smart enough to look away, slowly lower their hands from their faces. King Cepheus looks at the new art installation, then at you, then at his daughter, and seems to decide that this is a perfectly acceptable outcome. You, however, have had enough of this place. The drama, the entitled X, the family boasting that almost gets everyone killed. It's exhausting. You've got your bride, you've proven your point, and you still have a Gorgon head to deliver. It's time to go home. You say your goodbyes to Andromeda's parents, promising to take good care of her, and together you take to the skies, leaving the land of Ethiopia and its new sculpture garden behind. The flight back to Seriphos is a lot less frantic. You have Andromeda with you now, her arms wrapped tightly around your waist as you soar through the clouds. It's a chance to finally breathe, to talk. You tell her about your quest, about your mother Danae, and the cruel king who sent you on this impossible journey. She tells you about her life as a princess, which, until recently, was apparently quite dull. As you approach the familiar shores of your island home, a sense of unease creeps back in. You left in a fit of pride and anger. You returning as a world-traveled hero with a monster S-head in a bag and a princess on his arm. You're not quite sure what you'll find. You land on the beach near the humble home of Dictys, the fisherman who raised you, but the house is empty, the door slightly ajar, a layer of dust on everything. A cold fear grips you. You find a nervous-looking neighbor who tells you the story. In your absence, King Polydectes had become relentless in his pursuit of your mother. He dropped all pretense of courtship and tried to take her by force. Danae and Dictys, unable to fight back, had been forced to seek sanctuary in a temple, clinging to the altar for protection. In ancient Greece, temples were sacred ground. To harm someone seeking asylum, there was a grave offense against the gods. But Polydectes, arrogant and cruel, had simply laid siege to the temple, surrounding it with his guards, planning to starve them out. Rage, cold and pure, floods through you. All this time while you were fighting for your life against gorgons and sea monsters. This petty tyrant was terrorizing your mother. You leave Andromeda in a safe place, and walk, alone, towards the king's palace. You don't bother knocking. You stride right into the throne room, where Polydectes is in the middle of a feast with his cronies, laughing and drinking. He looks up, and his jaw drops. He sees you, alive, and for a moment, he's speechless. Then his shock turns to scornful disbelief. You're back, he sneers, a greasy smile spreading across his face. So, the braggart returns with his tail between his legs. Where is it then, hero? Where is the head of Medusa you promised me? His friends roar with laughter. You stand there, calm and silent, the dusty cabyces in your hand. I have your gift, you say, your voice quiet but carrying across the hall. I have the wedding present you asked for. Polydectes leans forward on his throne, his eyes glittering with malice. Then show us, he commands. Prove you are not the liar and coward we all know you to be. You look around the room, at the jeering faces, the men who laughed when you were sent to your death, who stood by while the king tormented your mother. So be it, you say, but I advise anyone who is my friend to turn away their eyes. A few of the guards and servants, remembering you as Dictys' boy, nervously look away. Polydectes and his inner circle just laugh harder. You reach into the bag one last time, avert your own gaze, and hold up your terrible trophy. Behold, you say, the face that you desired. There is a collective, sharp intake of breath, and then a perfect, profound silence fills the hall. The laughter is frozen on their faces. King Polydectes is now a permanent fixture on his own throne, a stone monarch ruling over a court of stone sick of. Your promise has been kept. with the throne room of Seriphos now serving as a permanent exhibition of hubris. Your first act is to free your mother and the kind fisherman Dictes from their sanctuary. The people of the island, freed from a tyrant, rejoice. They need a new king, and who better than the good man who sheltered a hero? You declare Dictes the new ruler of Seriphos, and he accepts, bringing a quiet dignity to the role. Your work here, it seems, is done. You have rescued your mother, defeated the villain, and won a princess. It's the perfect, heroic checklist. Before you set off, however, there's the small matter of the divine loner items. You can't just keep winged sandals and a cap of invisibility. The celestial paperwork would be a nightmare. You meet with Hermes and Athena, returning their gear with thanks. The last item is the head. You offer it to Athena, who accepts the gruesome trophy and mounts it on the center of her shield, the Aegis, where its petrifying power will now serve her. With your divine errands complete, you, Andromeda, and your mother Dano are finally ready to go home to Argos. You are the rightful heir, after all. But as you travel, the old prophecy hangs heavy in your mind. The whole reason you were cast out to sea, the whole reason you were sent on this quest, was the oracle's decree that you would kill your grandfather, King Ac. You're a hero, not a murderer. You have no desire to harm the old man, no matter how cruelly he treated your mother. You decide to actively avoid your fate. You send a messenger ahead to Argos to announce your return, hoping that giving Acrisius a heads-up will be enough. But the terrified old king, hearing that the grandson he tried to kill is now a monster-slaying hero returning home, does the only thing he can think of. He flees. He runs from his own kingdom, seeking refuge in the land of Larissa, hoping to disappear. You arrive in Argos and are hailed as a king, but with Acrisius gone, the victory feels hollow. The prophecy remains an untied thread. Sometime later, you travel to Larissa to compete in funeral games being held in honor of the local king's father. It's a huge event, and as a celebrated hero, your participation is expected. You enter the discus competition. You feel the familiar weight of the bronze disc in your hand, the sun warm on your back. You take your position, spin, and release it with all your might. The discus sails through the air, a perfect, gleaming arc, until a sudden, freak gust of wind, or perhaps the unseen hand of fate itself, pushes it off course. It veers wildly, soaring past the intended landing area, and into the stands where the spectators are watching. There is a sickening thud and a cry of pain. You rush over, your heart sinking. An old man lies on the ground, struck by the heavy disc. As the crowd parts, you look down at his face and the blood drains from yours. It is your grandfather. He had fled his own destiny, only to run right into its arms, becoming a nameless spectator at the very event that would kill him. The prophecy has been fulfilled, not through malice or revenge, but through a terrible, blameless accident. Scholars still argue whether this ending is a testament to the inescapable nature of a divinely ordained fate, or a more human tragedy about how fear and paranoia can create the very outcomes we dread. You are now the rightful king of Argos, but you can't bear to rule the kingdom of the man you accidentally killed. In a final, sad twist, you trade kingdoms with a neighboring king, taking up the throne of Tyrants instead. And there, you and Andromeda live out your days, and you go on to found the great and legendary city of Mycenae, building a new future from the ashes of a tragic fate. And so, the frantic quest of the hero Perseus softens into the long and lasting legacy of a king. The echoes of his winged sandals fade into the quiet corridors of the palace. He built the terrible hissing of Medusa's snakes becomes a story whispered to his children, and the brilliant impossible light of a golden shower is remembered only as the strange and miraculous start to a legendary life. As the years turned to centuries, the gods themselves chose to honor the heroes of this story, lifting Perseus, the beautiful Andromeda, the foolish Cassiopeia, and even the monster Cetus into the night sky, where they remain to this day as constellations, their dramatic tale written in the eternal silent language of the stars, a gentle reminder that even the most harrowing of journeys can find a peaceful end in the vast quiet